Combat Instructor Vexthor saw something that broke every law of physics. Sarah Martinez, the human sanitation worker, had just finished a double shift cleaning the station. She was exhausted, dehydrated, swaying on her feet during mandatory defense training. When she fainted, she should have hit the metal floor hard. But 6 razor claw cubs, 30 meters away, moved faster than light itself. In 0.3 seconds they crossed the distance. These cubs, barely adolescents, reached speeds of 40 meters per second. Their species' maximum speed, even for adults, was 15. They caught Sarah before she hit the ground, creating a living cushion with their bodies, cradling her head with impossible gentleness. The training hall erupted in chaos. The cubs had formed a protective sphere around Sarah's unconscious form, their bodies interlocking in a pattern that military tacticians would later study for decades. These were razor claw cubs, apex predators from a world where mercy didn't exist. They shouldn't have protective instincts for another 10 years. Their muscles weren't developed enough for such speed. Yet here they were, emitting protective growls their vocal cords couldn't physically produce. Stay back. Instructor Vexthor warned the approaching medical team. The cubs won't let anyone near her. The most shocking part came next. The cubs were checking Sarah's pulse, monitoring her breathing, even checking her pupils for signs of concussion. They had no training in human anatomy. Their species didn't study other life forms except to hunt them. But somehow they knew exactly where to find a human pulse point, exactly how many breaths per minute meant danger. Dr. Clara burst through the doors with her xenobiology team, her scanners already picking up impossible readings. Their muscle fibers have densified to adult levels temporarily. Neural pathways show cognitive function equal to full maturity. This is biologically impossible. The cubs had begun doing something else extraordinary. They were regulating their body temperatures, creating a perfect warmth bubble around Sarah. This ability, thermoregulation for the benefit of others, wouldn't develop in their species until full maturity, if at all. Most razor claws never developed it because it served no predatory purpose. Sarah began to stir, mumbling weakly. Need to finish cleaning, Sector 12. The moment she spoke, all 6 cubs began purring. Not the aggressive rumble of hunting razor claws, but a gentle vibration specifically calibrated to human comfort frequencies. The medical team's bioscanners went haywire. The cubs were sharing their metabolic energy with Sarah, literally feeding her their life force to stabilize her vitals. They're keeping her stable through energy transfer, Dr. Clara breathed. This ability was lost millions of years ago in their evolutionary line. The medical team tried to reach Sarah using separation foam, a standard tool for safely extracting patients from dangerous situations. The foam should have created a barrier between Sarah and the cubs. Instead, the cubs secreted an enzyme that dissolved it instantly. This enzyme had been extinct in their species for 3 million years, lost when they evolved from pack healers to solitary hunters. Then came the truly impossible moment. The smallest cub looked up at the medical team and spoke in broken galactic standard. Sarah tired, we protect. No hurt, Sarah friend. The room fell silent. Razor claw cubs couldn't speak. Their vocal cords wouldn't develop complex speech capabilities for another decade. Yet this cub had not only spoken but had expressed an abstract concept: protection of another species. Dr. Clara's hands shook as she recorded the data. Their DNA is literally rewriting itself in real time. They're evolving whatever abilities they need to protect her. Evolution in minutes, not millennia. The medical team tried other approaches. Gravity fields meant to pin the cubs only triggered the sudden growth of anti-gravity organs that shouldn't exist in any terrestrial species. Neural disruptors, designed to safely stun them, caused the cubs to form a psionic shield that protected not themselves but Sarah's consciousness from the effect. Sarah's eyes fluttered open fully. She looked at the cubs surrounding her and smiled weakly, reaching out to pet the nearest one. Good babies, such good babies. The moment her hand touched the cub's fur, all their stress markers dropped to 0. 6 apex predators, designed by millions of years of evolution to be perfect killing machines, were calmed by the gentle touch of an exhausted human janitor. The cubs began demonstrating advanced field medicine. They fashioned a makeshift four from training equipment, creating an electrolyte solution from sports drinks and mineral supplements found in the training hall supplies. They elevated Sarah's feet to help with blood flow. They monitored her breathing and heart rate continuously, adjusting their positions to provide optimal support. They're performing trauma assessment protocols that take years to learn, the chief medical officer said in disbelief. How is this possible? Suddenly, alarms shrieked throughout the station. The adult razor claws were coming. The cubs' pack, responding to pheromones of distress mixed with something their species had never produced before, protective love. Pack Alpha Raptor stormed into the training hall with 6 elite warriors, each one a 9-foot-tall monument to predatory perfection. They expected to find their cubs in mortal danger. Instead, they found them gently tending to a human, exhibiting behaviors that violated every instinct of their species. Cubs don't protect prey. Raptor roared, his voice shaking the walls. This violates our nature. But his cubs didn't even acknowledge his dominance display. They were entirely focused on Sarah, who was trying to sit up. Sorry for making such a fuss, Sarah said weakly. I really should get back to work. The bathrooms in Sector 12 won't clean themselves. The cubs gently restrained her, the largest one speaking in increasingly fluent galactic standard. No, Sarah friend. You rest. You always tired. Always working. Need care. The adult razor claws stood frozen. Their cubs were now teaching them, explaining human vital signs, demonstrating how to identify shock, dehydration, and exhaustion in humans. Cubs who shouldn't even understand their own biology were teaching their parents advanced xenomedicine. Father Alpha, the smallest cub said, its voice clear and articulate. Humans fragile. Work too hard. Need water, rest, care. We provide. Like Sarah provides for us. What do you mean like Sarah provides? Raptor demanded. The truth began to emerge. 4 months, Sarah had been the only station worker who didn't avoid the cubs during their training. While others saw dangerous predators in training, she saw exhausted children. She had shared her lunch with them, sitting on the floor of the training hall during her breaks. She had given them names: Spot, Stripe, Shadow, Moon, Star, and Tiny. She had made sure they had water during long training sessions, even though it wasn't her job. Sarah friend checks on us, Spot explained, his speech becoming more sophisticated by the minute. Even when Sarah friend tired from double shifts. Even when Sarah friend's feet hurt. Always asks, you kids okay? You need anything? We remember. We learn. We protect in return. Station Commander Heron had arrived, along with diplomatic staff. The communication channels were exploding with accusations of human mind control, demands for explanations, threats of military intervention. Protocol 7 was initiated, preparing for potential interspecies conflict. 12 minutes until the Razorclaw High Council arrives, Commander Heron announced grimly. They'll demand answers we don't have. Sarah, still dizzy but determined, tried again to stand. Please, I don't want to cause trouble. I'll just go back to my quarters and... All 6 cubs and, surprisingly, 3 adult Razorclaws moved to steady her simultaneously. The adults looked as shocked as everyone else at their own protective reflexes. We caught her too, Raptor said, staring at his own claws in confusion. The instinct to protect, it transferred to us. The cubs were now creating specialized electrolyte solutions, mixing precise ratios of minerals and sugars to help Sarah recover. They had learned this not from any training but from watching Sarah prepare special cleaning solutions for different species' needs, remembering her careful attention to what each being required. High Counselor Zarkon's warship docked with military precision. The ancient Razorclaw entered the training hall prepared to eliminate compromised cubs and anyone who had corrupted them. His enforcer squad spread out, weapons charging. Then Sarah did something that shattered 50,000 years of Razorclaw doctrine. Still weak, still swaying, she stood and positioned herself between the cubs and the weapons. These cubs saved me, she said, her voice stronger than her body. I won't let you hurt them for being kind. If protecting someone makes them wrong, then your whole society is what's wrong, not them. The cubs moved to protect Sarah from their own council, creating a double paradox. Prey protecting predators who were protecting prey. The circular nature of the protection broke every model of predator-prey dynamics the Razorclaws had built their civilization on. High Counselor Zarkon studied the scene with ancient eyes. Explain this impossibility, human. Sarah swayed, and again the cubs caught her, easing her to a sitting position. As they tended to her, she explained. I never meant to change anything. I've been watching them train for months. They're pushed so hard, treated like weapons instead of children. They train until they collapse. No one checks if they're hurt or tired or scared. So I started checking. During my breaks I'd sit with them. Share my lunch because growing kids need to eat. Make sure they had water. Name them because everyone deserves a name, not just a designation number. You named them? Zarkon's voice held something that might have been wonder. Spot, Stripe, Shadow, Moon, Star, and Tiny, Sarah recited. They're good kids. They just needed someone to see that they're kids, not just future soldiers. Dr. Clara stepped forward with her data. Hi Counselor, what we're witnessing is unprecedented. Human reciprocal care has triggered dormant evolution in your species. The cubs haven't been weakened, they've been enhanced. Watch. The cubs demonstrated their dual nature. Without letting go of Sarah, they performed complex combat maneuvers that should have been impossible at their age. They showed they could fight more effectively while protecting, their care instincts enhancing rather than hindering their warrior capabilities. Your exhaustion triggered their evolution, Dr. Clara explained. They literally evolved the ability to catch you, to protect you because they couldn't bear to see you hurt. Millions of years of suppressed protective instincts reactivated in minutes. The smallest cub, Tiny, did something that hadn't happened in razor claw history. A single tear rolled down her scaled face. Sarah friend hurts herself helping others, Tiny said. Always tired. Always working. Never resting. We must protect protectors. Must catch those who catch others. The High Counselor watched his species produce tears for the first time in recorded history. He saw cubs who had evolved past their parents in minutes. He saw warriors made stronger by gentleness. They're not contaminated, he said slowly. They're evolved. They're what we could have been if we hadn't chosen pure predation over protection. Sarah struggled to process this. I just shared my sandwich. Made sure they were okay. That's all. That's all? Rex Tor laughed, a sound that had never come from a razor claw throat before. You taught our species to care. You triggered evolution itself through kindness. The news spread across the galactic network in minutes. Emergency signals flooded in from 20 worlds. Military academies, training facilities, combat schools, all reporting the same phenomenon. Predator species cubs were developing protective instincts toward humans who showed them simple kindness. The Galactic Council convened within hours, the largest emergency assembly in 500 years. Sarah was brought before them, still in her stained work uniform, still insisting she needed to finish cleaning Sector 12. Explain how you triggered galaxy-wide evolution, the council president demanded. Sarah looked at the thousands of representatives. I didn't do anything special. I just couldn't stand seeing them train alone and exhausted. Everyone needs someone checking on them. Everyone needs to know somebody cares if they fall. The cubs demonstrated their evolution to the assembly. They performed complex combat maneuvers while simultaneously monitoring Sarah's hydration levels, checking her pulse, ensuring she was comfortable. They showed that protection and power weren't opposites but complementary forces. Cubs from other predator species began arriving, drawn by the broadcast. Vorthax, Kelrothi, Zephrons, all historically aggressive species whose young had begun exhibiting protective behaviors. They worked together, teaching each other, creating care protocols for different alien physiologies. We are warriors who catch, Spot announced to the assembly. Not just warriors who strike. Stronger because we protect. Faster because we care. The vote was unanimous and immediate. The Martinez Protocol was established, mandating rest periods and care checking for all military training programs across the galaxy. The realization that protection instincts enhanced rather than diminished warrior capabilities revolutionized military doctrine overnight. Sarah was offered positions as military advisor on every major world. She declined them all. I'm a janitor, she said simply. Someone needs to make sure the training halls are safe for everyone. Clean floors prevent falls. That's my way of catching people. The cubs announced the formation of the first Interspecies Protection Corps, warriors whose primary mission was preventing harm rather than just responding to it. Within weeks, every military academy had established a Guardian Division. Statistics poured in from across the galaxy. Military units practicing protective care showed 300% better performance. Casualty rates dropped by 90%. Warriors who learned to catch before they learned to strike became superior in every measurable way. 3 months later, Training Hall 7 had been transformed. Now called the Catching Ground, it had become the most requested facility in the galaxy. Warriors came from every corner of known space to learn the dual path of protection and power. The original 6 cubs had grown to young adults in just 3 months, their protective evolution accelerating their physical development. They served as the first instructor guardians, teaching a radical new philosophy. True strength meant being fast enough to catch the falling, not just strike the enemy. Sarah still cleaned the training hall, but now with a difference. 50 species of cubs followed her on her rounds, all ensuring she took proper breaks, stayed hydrated, and never worked alone. They had developed a rotation system. While some trained, others accompanied Sarah, making sure their protector was protected. Sarah still cleans, visiting dignitary would be told, but now the galaxy's finest warriors ensure she rests. The Cubs had developed a training system where combat and care were taught simultaneously. Warriors learned to fight while monitoring their partner's well-being. They created universal hand signals that worked across all species. A closed fist opened meant need rest, a tap on the wrist meant need water, and crossed arms meant need help. The breakthrough came during a joint training session between razorclaws and vorthacs, species that had been enemies for 3,000 years. When a vorthac trainee collapsed from exhaustion, razorclaw cubs caught him before he hit the ground. The moment of protection transcended 3 millennia of hatred. Former enemies now catch each other, Raptor observed with pride. Protection transcends hatred. Care breaks cycles of vengeance. Sarah watched from where she was mopping, a smile on her tired face. She had never sought to change the galaxy. She had just been tired of seeing exhausted kids push themselves past their limits with no one caring if they fell. 1 year after that first fall, they held a ceremony in the exact spot where Sarah had fainted. A crystal monument now marked the location, showing 6 cubs catching a falling human, frozen in that moment that redefined strength across the galaxy. Sarah stood in her janitor uniform, refusing the ceremonial robes they'd offered. High Counselor Zarkon himself presented her with the Guardian Star, a new honor created specifically for those who protect through simple care. This monument, Zarkon announced to the assembled crowd, marks where the galaxy learned that catching someone who's falling is the highest form of strength. Sarah, true to form, had brought her mop to the ceremony. During her own award presentation, she began mopping the ceremonial platform. "What are you doing?" someone asked. "Maintaining safe spaces is my way of catching people before they fall," she replied. "Clean floors, clear paths, safe environments, that's protection too." The cubs, now full adults but still calling her Sarah friend, demonstrated their ultimate evolution. They could now predict and prevent falls before they happened. Their care instincts evolved to precognition. They could sense exhaustion, dehydration, or distress from across a room and move to prevent collapse before it began. "We evolved to catch because Sarah taught us falling doesn't mean failing," Spot explained. "Everyone falls. The strong make sure nobody falls alone." The ceremony concluded with something unprecedented: the catch pledge. Thousands of warriors from hundreds of species raised their various appendages and spoke in unison. "We are those who catch. We are those who protect. We are strong because we care. We are warriors because we guard. Today and always we pledge, nobody falls alone." High Counselor Zarkon made a final announcement. "Razorclaw military doctrine now begins with protection training. We have discovered that warriors who learn to catch become superior in all combat aspects. Care enhances capability. Protection enhances power." As the ceremony ended, Sarah returned to her routine. She had Sector 12 to clean after all. But now she was surrounded by guardian warriors from every corner of the galaxy, all ensuring she took regular breaks, all ready to catch her if she stumbled. The cubs demonstrated the permanence of their evolution by teaching newborns. Baby razorclaws, just days old, were learning to catch falling objects before they learned to hunt. The instinct to protect had become part of their genetic code, passed on to new generations. "Look," Tiny said proudly, watching a newborn catch a falling toy. "They catch before they hunt now. Protection before predation. This is our new nature." The transformation spread beyond military applications. Across the galaxy, predator species were discovering that protective instincts enhanced every aspect of their lives. Scientists who ensured their colleagues' well-being made greater discoveries. Engineers who checked on each other's safety built better structures. Even artists found that caring for their fellow creators enhanced their own creativity. Sarah had become, accidentally, the most influential figure in galactic history. Not through force or brilliant strategy, but by sharing her lunch with tired cubs and making sure they had water during training. Years passed. Sarah aged, her hair growing gray, her steps slower. But she never stopped working, never stopped checking on the cubs who were no longer cubs. The catching ground had expanded to encompass the entire station, with memorial markers where acts of protection had occurred. New species joining the Galactic Alliance were brought to Training Hall 7 first, shown the spot where Sarah fainted and 6 cubs caught her. They were taught the fundamental truth that had reshaped civilization: strength meant catching the falling. "This is where it began," tour guides would say. A tired janitor fainted and cubs who shouldn't have cared caught her. They evolved millions of years in seconds because they couldn't bear to let her hit the ground. That moment taught us that evolution's greatest leaps come from choosing to catch rather than letting fall. The adult razorclaws who had witnessed that first catch had become the galaxy's premier protection instructors. Raptor, the pack alpha who had initially been horrified by his cub's behavior, now taught advanced catching techniques to special forces across known space. "My cubs taught me," he would tell his students, "that we were always meant to catch. We just forgot, choosing to strike instead." Sarah Martinez reminded us through sandwich sharing and water giving that strength serves no purpose if it doesn't protect. Sarah's influence extended beyond the physical. Philosophers studied what became known as the Martinez paradox: how showing weakness, fainting, had triggered strength, protection, how vulnerability had created invulnerability, how one person's fall had taught a galaxy to catch. Military historians documented the complete transformation of warfare. Battles were now won not by who could destroy the most but by who could protect the most. Victory meant ensuring minimum casualties on both sides. The goal had shifted from domination to preservation. The cubs, Spot, Stripe, Shadow, Moon, Star, and Tiny, had become legendary figures. Statues of them catching Sarah stood on hundreds of worlds. Children of all species played catchers and fallers, a game where the highest score came from preventing anyone from hitting the ground. But the most remarkable change was in everyday life. Across the galaxy, beings had learned to watch for signs of exhaustion in others. Work shifts were restructured to prevent burnout. The phrase, "Who's catching you?" became a standard greeting, a way of checking that everyone had someone looking out for them. Sarah continued working until she couldn't anymore. On her last day, she stood in Training Hall 7, now an elderly woman supported by a walker that the cubs had designed specifically for her comfort. "I'm retiring," she announced to the assembled crowd of thousands who had come to see her final shift. The cubs, now elderly themselves in their accelerated life cycle, surrounded her one last time. "We caught you once," Spot said, his voice deep with age but still warm with affection. "You caught us every day before and after. Thank you, Sarah friend, for teaching us to catch." Sarah smiled, tears in her eyes. "You kids changed everything. All because you wouldn't let me hit the floor." "No," Tiny corrected gently. "All because you wouldn't let us train alone. You caught us first, with sandwiches and kindness. We just returned the catch." The ceremony marking Sarah's retirement was broadcast across the galaxy. The Guardian's bell, forged from metal from every member world, was rung once for each life saved by someone inspired by that first catch. The ringing continued for 6 hours. In her final statement, Sarah said something that would be quoted for generations. "I was just a janitor who thought kids shouldn't train hungry or alone. The cubs were just kids who thought I shouldn't hit the ground. Together, we accidentally taught the galaxy that catching each other is what makes us strong. Don't wait for someone to fall to help them. Check on them before they stumble. Share your lunch. Offer water. Give them names, not numbers. That's all it takes to evolve a universe, just care enough to catch." The legacy continued long after Sarah passed. The catching ground became a pilgrimage site. Military academies began their training not with combat but with care. The first lesson every warrior learned was how to catch someone falling. The Martinez Protocol evolved into the Martinez Doctrine. Strength without protection is just destruction. Power without care is just violence. True warriors catch the falling, support the stumbling, and ensure nobody faces exhaustion alone. The 6 cubs had their consciousness preserved in the galactic archive, their memories of Sarah teaching future generations. Their message was simple and consistent. We evolved to catch because someone cared enough to feed us when we were hungry. Evolution isn't about becoming stronger. It's about becoming kind enough to use that strength for others. Scientists studied the phenomenon for centuries, trying to understand how simple acts of kindness had triggered galaxy-wide evolution. The answer, when it came, was beautifully simple. Species evolved to match the care they received. When shown protection, they developed protective abilities. When shown kindness, they developed kind instincts. Sarah Martinez had been right about Sector 12. The bathrooms did need cleaning. But in taking time from that task to share lunch with tired cubs, she had cleaned something far more important. She had cleaned away millions of years of evolutionary selfishness, replacing it with the instinct to catch. The revolution she started never ended. Every day, on thousands of worlds, beings caught each other. Not because they were ordered to, not because it was protocol, but because 6 cubs had shown that catching someone who's falling is the highest expression of strength. In the end, the greatest military advancement in galactic history wasn't a weapon or strategy. It was a janitor sharing her sandwich and some alien cubs refusing to let her hit the ground. They had discovered together that the universe's strongest force wasn't gravity or nuclear fusion or dark energy. It was the instinct to catch someone who's falling, born from the simple recognition that everybody deserves someone who cares if they hit the ground. The memorial plaque at the catching ground read simply, Here Sarah Martinez fell, and here 6 cubs caught her. Here the galaxy learned that true strength means nobody falls alone. May all who train here remember, we are those who catch. And they did remember. 4,000 of years, through wars and peace, through expansion and contraction, through every crisis the galaxy faced, they remembered. When someone stumbled, someone else caught them. When someone fell, someone else cushioned their landing. All because once, in Training Hall 7, a tired janitor fainted and 6 cubs moved faster than physics should allow to catch her. They had evolved millions of years in 0.3 seconds, driven by a simple thought. Sarah friend must not hit ground. That thought, that instinct, that choice to catch rather than let fall, had transformed predators into protectors, warriors into guardians, and a galaxy of isolated species into a community that caught each other. Sarah Martinez had just wanted to finish cleaning Sector 12. The cubs had just wanted to protect the human who shared her lunch with them. Together, they had rewritten the rules of evolution, proving that kindness could trigger changes that millions of years of survival pressure couldn't. The universe had learned its most important lesson not in a laboratory or battlefield but in a training hall where a janitor's fall was prevented by cubs who chose love over instinct. And that choice, replicated across 1,000,000 moments on 1,000 worlds, had evolved civilization itself into something that caught instead of conquered. That was Sarah's true legacy, a galaxy where strength meant catching the falling, where power meant preventing harm, where evolution meant choosing protection over predation. She had cleaned more than floors. She had cleaned away the assumption that survival required selfishness, replacing it with the truth that we survive by catching each other.